Guys, the question now is, should we react to what's happening with Corki in patch 14.10? I think it's time, right? We're gonna react to what Phreak has to cook up. It's only 30 minutes and I'm gonna play it 125 or 1.5. So Phreak is cooking up changes to Corki and I wanna see what exactly he wants to do.
Hello gamers, Phreak here. I'm the design lead of Summoners Rift Team's live pod, talking about a champion getting changed in about 2 weeks' time. Corki coming to a patch 14.10 near you in about, again, 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
As of time of recording, the patch notes for 14.9 are coming out in about 12 hours. Pretty soon after that, you'll see 14.10 update onto the PvE, and inside that patch is going to be a large-scale kit update to Corki that, yeah, I think is a long time coming, and I am happy is going into League of Legends. So
okay, so first of all, he already announced a Corki rework or whatever many patches ago if you were watching his video. And then second of all, 14.10 is usually the patch each year that like kind of changes up the game a lot. For example, what was it, like 12.10 or whatever was like durability patch or whatever, right? So yeah, basically when it's the 10 number, the game, they often have like a lot in store for the game.
So let's talk about why there are Corki changes coming into 14.10. Number one, I like Corki a lot. Corki was my probably first main when I started playing League of Legends a lot.
Same.
Back in 2009, I was in the closed beta, and I wanted to be good. And so what I did was I looked at a random, like the most recent sort of community-run closed beta tournament, and I took stock of every champion that was picked from like semifinals onward and put them into a big list of, you know, up to 30 champions. Of course, they were repeats. And I said, okay, well, what are the champions that the best players are playing right now? That'll be my champion pool. And so among them was a lot of emphasis on Corki, and so I became a Corki main. From the very beginning, I tried to play the strong things. And so I was Corki main for a long time. There was a while where people considered me the best Corki player in the world. This would have been like 2009, 2010, well before there were like a real established pro scene. But he was my first main. He was a really cool champion. We did a champ spotlight on him because I knew the champ pretty well. Don't look it up. It's a pretty bad video. It's 15 years old, basically. Anyway, I'm a big Corki fan. That said, Corki is a very boring champion to watch. It
is, but also I wish, it's probably not going to happen, but I wish he got like model update. It's so underwhelming.
I think is not in a very good state for a spectator sport. I think to play him, he's fine. But ultimately, he has such a negative effect on pro play because his optimal gameplay pattern is so boring that we have to leave him intentionally weak. And that sucks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Pretty bad. Additionally, the types of builds that players think make sense on him actually aren't that good. So there's various mismatches here as well.
This is very true. The build that should be good on him is Crit Corki, making him be very auto-attack based. Sadly, pro play has Malignance Corki, right? Because we shipped an item that breaks the game essentially because champions can be played much more around their ults, and Corki is one of those champs.
And ultimately that all makes me sad, right? Because I like Corki a lot. I want this champion to be good. I want him to be allowed to be good, and so that's that.
Okay.
The random note here, February 16th, is when I started this project in earnest. I had discussions with people about this several times over the last, I don't know, year or so.
So 2 months.
February 16th was
pretty
when
much.
I
3 months.
Basically, there's like a monthly suggested take PTO day on League of Legends gameplay, and I took that Friday and instead went to the office and built a Corki update. And then it wasn't high priority, it wasn't that we'd scheduled, but it was like, hey, well, if there's ever free time, if we're doing a play test and there are no test points in the bottom lane, do we mind slotting Corki in there and getting feedback once in a while? And so he's kind of on the back burner for a while, but we eventually got some playtest coverage and got some learnings, and every time I had some free time, I'd either like cut a lunch break short or something, but I decided I wanted to work on Corki.
Okay.
And so now that's been about 2.5 months. This is basically ready. We slotted it into patch 14.10. We could have gone 14.9 and rescheduled some time, but ultimately decided to do it in a patch that is already going to be fairly large. And so
that's
it's kind of a good time.
Yeah, fairly large. Nice.
Yeah, it just fits. So ultimately, yeah, this project took off and on about 2 months, and he's coming out in 14.10. Okay, great.
Okay.
So let's talk about the goals of the update, because just saying, hey, I want to fix, being in pro jail isn't doing anything. Like, make him exciting is not a goal. I mean, it kind of is, but like, it's not a direction for an update, right? So let's talk about the goals here. So number one, I actually want Corki to be a bot laner again. As it stands right now, there are very few champions
that makes me sad.
If you sort League of Legends by pick rate, you will always see like 3 AD carries at the top of the pile because there just aren't as many, and bot laners pretty much refuse to play other champions. So, if you want champion variety, which I think is a pretty useful, fairly high-level goal for League of Legends, the more champions you can make bot laners that bot laners will actually play, aka they look like marksmen, they feel like marksmen, the better champ variety you get, which is probably a pretty good thing.
Okay, so before he goes on, right? So first of all, that makes me sad, because for me, Yes, I know Corki is originally intended to be a bot laner, but because he's been a mid laner for so many years, it kind of feels like we're losing a mid lane champ. It kind of like, to me, it kind of feels like these days Corki is just a mid laner, not a bot laner. It is what it is, right? Like, for example, Graves was once also an ADC, right? And now he's just a jungler, and everyone knows he's a jungler, right? Yeah, it makes me sad, but I kind of get his point. It is true that on bot lane, people refuse to play other champions, and it is true that when you click like the bot lane tab in your champ select, you're gonna quickly realize there's not a lot of champions compared to top, mid, and jungle and support. So I kind of get this point. Says Corki is not like a generic safe scaling marksman. Okay, that's interesting. For me, Corki's identity was always more about late game, but okay. Corki does hype things, the daring bombardier. Corki can sustain a real win rate without making pro play boring. Okay, let's see.
So in general, I don't mind if Corki is also a mid laner. That's not a problem here. It's not a failure, but the fact that Corki can be played in bot lane again is a primary goal.
Okay.
Second, Corki has a long range dash and some long range spells. If Corki is a safe generic scaling marksman, we've got a lot of those already, especially when they're safe. That's a really bad thing because then there's no agency for anyone else. You just kite everybody, you deal full damage from maximum range, and gameplay quality of safe and late game carry, I think is pretty poor on average, and so try not to do that very much.
Okay.
In general,
how are you going to fix that?
So make him not a generic safe scaling marksman. Okay, fine. That is a constraint more than a goal, but considering that right now he is a safe long range scaling marksman, fix that, right? And so ultimately, let's have Corki do hype things. His title is the Daring Bombardier. Let's try to make him daring. Let's try to make him aggressive. Let's try to make him have to go in and do things to do his job correctly. Okay, great. And again, we just want him to be able to sustain a real win rate without making pro play boring. This isn't like much more than the wise statement above, but ultimately, these are sort of the like, hey, this update is working correctly if he's a good bot laner. This update is working correctly if Corki is not just a safe scaling bot laner. This update is working correctly if players feel like, yes, Corki is aggressive and we think he's going to be not boring in pro play. Whatever tactics you do, if it ladders up to these goals, then these tactics have been correct. Okay, great. So we've gone one order down, we've gone one level down. Let's go to the actual tactics, right? Here are the actual things we're trying to achieve, right? These are the
short range aggro champion.
Let's make Corki a short range aggro champion, right? Let's make changes that directly make him a short
range aggro.
In order to make him a bot laner, let's make him heavily cooperative. Let's tune things around in the kit to make cooperative gameplay correct here, to make sure that he actually wants to play in a 2-on-2, and that is like a very, very
How are you going to do that?
Watch reward basic attacking. He has 5 at the auto attack range. He has
okay, that's nice.
Auto attack range, and so if a lot of his success is predicated on being in auto attack range, this means that he can't succeed on just being a poke champion. So it's like pretty heavily reward basic attacking. We're going to remove the package. The package is going away.
That's good.
This is probably his most pro skewed aspect. I think it was a pretty noble idea to try way back when to give him sort of a real ultimate that didn't fit in our ultimate paradigm. Really cool investigation, some interesting stuff there. But at the end of the day, having an ability on a 5-minute long cooldown, it's not very effective in solo queue where the game is chaotic and people fight constantly. In pro play, where people are incredibly coordinated and will wait
package bring gun is
good.
Do
nothing and play low risk until the next dragon comes up, is the exact timing of package. That is not a great thing. It's why the last time we did pro nerfs to Corki, we went after the package because, of course, getting rid of the package does remove some of the Daring Bombardier type stuff, right? It was a way to dive in melee range. And so
that is true.
Make sure that we re-added incentives to play in melee range and actually try to land some damage on people. Okay, great. And then
so early game skew, okay? This is a very high elo thing, right? Champions being early game skewed, they're usually high elo. This like reminds you of like what? Kalista and Draven. Early game skew also means that he probably will not be a mid laner, because what they're going to do, they're going to probably nerf his stats per level scaling and buff stats that are base or whatever, right? That's probably going to happen. So that's going to make him much worse as mid laner.
We're not getting a late game scaling marksman. We're going to early game skew the champion overall. Not to make his late game bad per se. I mean, he's an auto attack marksman. It's not going to be bad by any means. But relative to other marksmen, like it's probably going to be worse than Cogman, worse than Jinx, worse than a lot of the champions, and that's fine.
Okay.
He's going to be early game skewed. What's nice is actually there aren't a lot of easy to play early game skewed champions. Like
that is true.
Like a pretty good laner, but I wouldn't call him a lane bully. But like Draven is hard to play. Kalista's hard to play. Lucian's pretty hard to play.
For marksman, this is true. For some other roles, this is probably not true.
There aren't a lot of easy to play lane bullies, and Corki is not complex. And so actually having a space for an easy to play lane bully, and maybe even if you're autofilled ADC and you're like, oh shoot, they're playing this hyperscaling comp, they've got, Lulu Kog'Maw or something, or Yumi Zeri or something. It's like, oh, we should play a lane bully. Oh, I can play Corki, he's easy, let's go. So there's like some value there. It wasn't like a primary goal to make him easy or easier, but Corki is fairly easy. And hey, there's actually a pretty good position strategically in the roster for an easy to play early game skewed champion. Okay, great.
Okay.
Let's start talking about the individual changes themselves.
Let's talk about that.
On board, hopefully, with what's going on with Corki, what we're trying to do with Corki, and what's going to make him hopefully more fun. So the passive is getting changed technical conditions. Remove the package. The package is gone. Goodbye to the package. Obviously, this is a fairly meaningful amount of win rate going away, so he's got to
15% bonus shoe damage, including Shin. Wow. Jesus Christ. Okay, that's scary. Is that really an early game skewed lever? I don't think it is. Isn't shoe damage more of a late game thing? But then again, it doesn't really matter. It's both. I guess it's good in any level. Including Shin, that means they're gonna try. It was 10% when he was OG. Yeah, I think it was 10%, like when it was many years ago. I mean, including Shin, they want him to buy Triforce. This is totally fair, okay?
Buffed. Corki is already a pretty bad champion. He's bad, and we're removing part of his kit that gave him power. Obviously, a lot of powers to be added back in, and so we are bringing back the old passive. It's better than before. It is true damage on auto attacks, including Sheen.
Okay, that's insane.
What's interesting is old Corki just simply said, if you auto or if you crit, you'll get some bonus damage as true damage. Okay, great. It did not interact with Sheen, did not interact with Trinity Force, it did interact with all those things. Trinity Force is good because you had a low cooldown spell on R, but otherwise there's no interaction.
Yes.
When Corki passive was changed to deal
it was good with Q too.
Magic damage on all auto attacks. The Spellblade system scripting was re-architected to say, if you have Corki passive, deal all the damage as magic damage. Not to be fair, magic damage is generally stronger than physical damage. People have less MR than armor, so that is a buff. Anyway, I went in and changed the scripting to say, if you have Corki passive, deal 15% more damage as true damage. So the old Corki back in 2009 didn't have bonus true damage on the passive. Now he does. Congratulations. Corki is a cool guy. Great. Congratulations. Your Sheen is superior now.
This kind of makes me wonder, like, is there a world where Corki is going to become a top laner because he's a lane bully? A range lane bully? Sounds like a good place for top lane.
It does not work on other effects. The tool will explicitly say your autos. It will imply very heavily that your crits, and it will explicitly say your Spellblade effects will get bonus damage as well. This will not empower Blade of the Ruin King. This champion does not print % health true damage. He is not Vayne. This is not going to, interact with Rage Blade. It's not going to interact with getting bonus on hit effects. It will interact with Hurricane. I tested it literally today. If you land a Hurricane Bolt, you'll do half as much damage. If it crits, congratulations. It will do all the things there. So, Toxic Conditions is all auto attacks, all crits, and Sheen effects specifically get 50% bonus damage as true damage. Now, I want to be clear about something. Despite how good this looks, this is actually not that strong of a buff compared to dealing magic damage in a world where you weren't building LDR.
Wait, hold on. What? Magic damage will not be a thing anymore on this champion? Really? I thought it's like, it's gonna do magic, but then also some of it is true. Oh wait, so magic is gone. Damn.
Or anything, because again, champions have more armor than magic resist, and so converting to magic damage was actually a very, very big deal. This is obviously very, very good in the early game when the stats are tied. 50% more damage is 50% more damage. But as you go to late game, this is not strictly more powerful, although it can really depend on what you're facing and what's going on here. Okay, moving on to Phosphorus Bomb.
That's the Q.
Changes came in quite late. A lot of them came in today as we got more feedback on the champion. But ultimately, trying to play up a slightly stronger bread and butter ability.
Okay, so let's see. Missile speed buffed. I'm not sure if the ability needs that. Like, sure, I can maybe see it being buffed a little bit, but I honestly think the ability travels pretty fast already. And if you buff the speed even more, the ability is just going to be kind of point and click. AD ratio buffed, I totally get that. The ability doesn't scale that well through late game, so this makes sense. Cooldown changed, okay, what does that mean? And mana cost buffed, okay.
So we're making him less about Missile Barrage, and we are making his auto attacks better in a couple of different ways, which we'll talk about later on. He needs ability that he can kind of rely on, kind of spam out, and feel good about.
Okay.
So the first thing that came in day one was 10% faster missile speed on the Q.
10%.
Technically, Q has two different missiles. There is the normal missile that you're used to seeing, and there's a short range missile. If you cast, I forget what the range is, like 300 less or something like that, but it casts a different missile instead, and that short range missile has a fixed travel time. On live, that fixed travel time is a quarter second. What it is going down to is basically 10% less than a quarter second, roughly 9% less than a quarter second, because the missile speed is going up by 10%, did the math, and it's like 0.227 or whatever it is. So short missile is about 9% faster, actual missile itself, 10% faster, basically the math all works out the same, trust me. Either way, Q is going to be easier to land. Q is one of the most fair skills in the game. I would argue too fair, and so Phosphorus Bomb, going to be easier to land. AD ratio being buffed. Now, I'm specifically going for AD ratio, and ranks 4 and 5 of the cooldown are getting buffed here.
4 or 5, okay, that's fair.
Of how bursty Corki can be at level 9, which is actually very bursty. His spells are all quite offensive. They all deal direct damage to his opponent. Oftentimes, they are quite hard to dodge. If you Valkyrie forwards, right, Q is very easy to hit, R is very easy to hit. Like, this auto is very meaningful. And so I was cognizant of his burst overall and didn't want to give him too much stronger of a level 9 power spike. What I instead wanted to do was say, well, once you get to level 9, congratulations, your Q cooldown is shorter. Instead of 8 seconds, it's 7. And as a result, you're going to be able to put out more damage the more gold you gain as you level up. As you earn gold.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this makes sense. They're giving him leverage that will make him very much about early game, like he said before, and he's gonna spike very hard early game. So like level 9 Corki with Triforce spike is probably gonna be insane.
Part of this ability, you get to cast it a whole lot more, 12% more often. And so that mixed with an AD ratio buff says that we're going to give you some late game via gold scaling, not via level scaling, because again, we're trying to make sure his strengths line up in bot lane, less so in mid lane, and so trying to somewhat play down gaining levels, but play up gaining gold. Mana cost also buffed, just softening the mana cost per rank up from +10 to +5.
Ooh, so okay. Damn. So I guess they don't want him to buy tier, I suppose. This is why he's getting more mana. They probably do not want Corki to be Mana Moon anymore, which I think is fine. I think Mana Moon suits mid lane more than bot lane. So this is fair. So it's probably going to be like, Triforce into some crit.
Yep, feel better, make it more valuable. It's already his default first match.
Or Essence River into crit.
With a better mana cost rank up, with a better cooldown rank up, and the spell's being better on overall. So obviously a strict buff to Phosphorus Bomb. Again, this champion is currently weak, and we're removing the package, so this champion, of course, needs buffs.
Okay.
Next
That's
one,
fair.
not terribly exciting, but a pretty big under the hood. Rebuilding Valkyrie. There's actually a lot of rescripting being done here.
So it's the same ability.
Though, being rescripted closer to modern standards. Did a whole bunch of updates on particles.
Okay, that's cool.
The particle size of the burn on the ground. The spamness of the particle when you actually damage enemy champion. The way it was scripted before is basically every quarter second it would try to reapply W to you, and at the same time would also then play the hit effect particle of the W, which made it actually very, very spammy. If you just like stopped and looked at what happened when you Valkyried over an enemy champion, it looked really ugly. Of course, it's particles from 2009. I assume they would not pass today's art bar, but also them triggering every quarter second looks really ugly as well. And so did a bunch of changes here. So now the particles only play when the unit takes damage. And as I mentioned, or wrote here, the damage flow logic has been rescripted. Ultimately, the way Valkyrie works on live is you almost always miss the last damage tick. You very, very, very commonly, against a stationary target dummy in melee range, cast W, and you will not get the full 150 to 450 damage. Most often you will not. That sucks. That's really silly. And so I rescripted the Valkyrie to be based on a dot instead. This dot deals damage in half-second increments because that is the rate that I think makes sense for dot effects, period, in League of Legends. I think dots should always deal damage in half-second increments. That is my strong opinion. You may disagree. That's fine. That's how I feel about this, though. To me, it gives a good mix between the hits feeling chunky and looking chunky and getting a good repetitive feedback loop of I am damaging you, you're clearly on fire, I'm hitting you repeatedly, and getting... It's just a good mix of reactivity and heft.
I don't know if that's true. Like, is really 0.5? What about 0.25?
So anyway, I rescripted the W to instead be a dot with a target max damage. So under the hood, there is a max damage on W, there is a max AP ratio on W, and there's scripting that says, okay, well listen, when I apply this to you, like prorate the damage, and then apply the dot. And the dot's going to keep track. This dot's going to say, look, the maximum damage that I'm allowed to deal is this amount or this number of ticks. It's actually this number of ticks. And I know that I have an upfront hit. And I know that that upfront hit plus the other number of ticks needs to equal out to this amount of damage. And so you do a bunch of like math on the front end at the very beginning, and you say, okay, here's the damage per hit. Go hit them 5 times. This now means that if I Valkyrie on you point blank, you will take damage up until the point that the particle times out, because that is the timing put into the skill. That is the duration put into the dot. That is
but this doesn't really matter.
That is just like all the things, like just like basically taking a bunch of details and saying, if I pick this number and this number and this number and this number, what's going to happen is if you stand a Valkyrie the whole time, the effects will all disappear at the same time, basically. An additional addition here is not only are you getting 10% more damage because you're not going to kind of fail here, I've also added...
I don't really understand the whole W, to be honest. Like, I thought he's getting a new spell. What? Like, he's talking about Corki is going to be like an early game aggressive champion. It's boring when he has an escape, but the ability is the same, so he's still going to have an escape. I don't really, like, understand this.
A linger to the dot. What that means is it's totally possible that you run off the fire and then take 1, potentially 2 ticks at the end. I believe it can only be carpet and take...
I'm going to skip a bit forward a bit
on this, but right now Valkyrie has a ability. That Valkyring at your opponents, Valkyring on your opponents should be really good. And so not only
okay, he wants you to Valkyrie on the opponent.
Look how much damage we can do.
That's kind of hard, right? Because he's short range, and his Valkyrie, to be honest, does not have that much of a range. I don't know about this.
It can be a lot. Look at this, really
this
good
sounds
really good ratio. This is very effective.
Not so good in my head.
Reasonably inexpensive as a spell. The cooldown certainly, pretty rough, but that's fine. It's a cost you have to pay. But adding the linger as well says, okay, like if I Valkyrie at you and I get over the top of you and I land this on you, I'm going to get almost certainly 3 guaranteed ticks here. I mean, I'm going to get more than half the damage of the spell. I'm going to get about 100 damage on you if I can Valkyrie over the top of you. I think it's quite good. I think it's really beneficial, and this gives him a really strong incentive to Valkyrie forward and play as a daring bombardier. Okay.
Like, first of all, if they want him to also be more auto-attack based, I'm wondering if they need to, like, maybe buff his base stats on attack speed or something. Okay, that's the E. Cooldown is buffed. Okay, so by the way, current Corki E is insane level 1. Like, it's so overtuned at level 1. It's mind-blowing. Cooldown buffed, Shred Cap buffed, Shred Rate buffed, damage and AD ratio nerfed. Okay. So they want the spell to be more spammy, and they want the spell to be more shreddy, but less of a damage, flat damage out. I can kind of see the point of this.
Gatling gun is, I would say, probably the second biggest set of changes behind okay, third behind passive than R. So Gatling Gun is, again, we need a lot of buffs here because we remove the package champion's already weak. So we buffed the cooldown substantially from 16 seconds to 12. That's the current tuning. It's really, really good.
Wow.
Gatling Gun has a very, very high base damage, a very,
It
very
does,
high
yeah.
bonus AD ratio, and is honestly pretty generous in terms of its ability to hit things. So having, oh, it's also the mana cost is very low. It's only 50.
Yeah, 50 per rank.
So with a cooldown going to 12 seconds.
Wait, what did he say?
Oh, it's also the mana cost is very low. It's only 50 right now. At rank 1, it goes up to rank though.
Oh, it's gonna go up the rank of mana cost.
So with a cooldown going to 12 seconds, you have a lot of opportunities to just kind of Gatling gun and walk at your opponent and get a pretty good amount of damage here. Now keep in mind, Corki's basic move speed is lowest in the game. He's 325.
Yeah. Please buff it by 5. I beg you.
Also, if he just walks at you forever, you can trade back. Keep in mind, if he doesn't walk past your mini wave, his R is going to get blocked. Of course, his Q is a real spell, but okay, whatever. But you can trade back onto him without too much difficulty if he really just walks at you. But this gives him a lot of reliable forward aggressive damage that is, again, just like very straightforward, but quite good. So the cooldown, a lot lower. Again, mana cost is cheap, the base damage is good. This is a spell that's worth casting, and it's worth casting a lot, and you're going to be able to cast it a lot. And because you can cast a spell essentially 1/3 more times or 1/4 more times, that is a lot of potential damage throughput.
There it is.
We're going to play this up even more. The shred is getting substantially buffed. It's being, the max shred is being.
So the shred being buffed reminds me when Phreak buffed Terminus, because Terminus went from being such an underwhelming item to having such an insane passive that is so stackable even without Rage Bit in your build.
Increased, and the rate at which the shred stacks up to max is also being increased. Essentially, you should assume your target is max shredded very quickly with Gatling Gun. It will full stack within 1 second instead of within...
in 1 second? Hello?
Within 2 seconds, which just does matter because not only Gatling Gun
Okay.
itself deals more damage because your opponent has less armor for more.
That's
because
crazy.
The shred is increased. They're going to have just less armor, period, and thus even if the base damage is technically nerfed, the shred buffs mean the damage is actually not nerfed, and in some cases just strictly buffed. Plus, again, you can cast it more often. So Gatling Gun is just a better skill. Now, the one thing I do want to bring up though is that the damage has been converted from half physical, half magic to pure physical damage. That of course is a guaranteed nerf late game. Though keep in mind you are still shredding armor, which matters.
It's pure physical damage. Okay.
It is of course synergistic with yourself and your teammate. I wanted to play it cooperativeness, and so a lower cooldown, more max shred, and a faster shred rate, all of which say when your teammate is Leona, when your teammate is Nami, when your teammate is Nautilus, they're going to do even more damage than your opponent. You put Gatling on them, you're going to kill them together. That's a
Damn, Corki is gonna be much more physical heavy than before.
very big deal here, and so that's a really big hit, even if the theoretical solo damage on E is maybe a bit lower, despite the shred and cooldown buffs.
Okay, I want to see the R.
Moving on to Missile Barrage, as I mentioned, the second biggest set of changes. Quite a lot here.
So what do we have? Ammo on rank up. Okay, so before you can hold 7 rockets at all stages. Now it's probably going to be less early, maybe more late. Ammo rate and cap nerfed. Okay, ammo refunds on champion auto. So it incentivizes you to trade. The more you trade, the more ults you get. It kind of has an Avori effect inbuilt, okay? Mana cost is nerfed. So it's going to cost more. Physical damage and higher base. Bonus AD no longer scales on rank. Oh, shit. So I assume there's still a big R every 3 Rs. Wow. That is a massive change because this just gonna mean late game this R is gonna probably do poop damage. And it's just gonna be all about early game, level 6 to 11. This bonus AD no longer scaling per rank is a massive hit to R. But there is a higher base damage. So level 6 Corki is probably going to be insane.
First, I want to bring up that there was a potential set of Corki changes that would have come out last year. A designer who was on SRT, who went over to Team
Who
Fight
was?
Tactics,
He got fired.
was trying
Oh, never mind.
a
Team
Corki
Fight
mid-scope,
Tactics.
had tried some stuff, ultimately got it down to a fairly small change list that we were considering shipping. As he left the TFT, he left us with the project. We ultimately decided not to ship anything here. But there were pieces of it that I actually liked. And so I kind of brought up, I literally just like resurrected his scripting. I just found the version history and kind of added it back in. But essentially, first one is just some quality of life for Corki. When you rank up R, you're going to get 3 ammo. So, you know,
When you rank up R, you're going to get 3 ammo. Okay. Back in the day, when you hit level 6 and you would rank up R, you would get 7 ammo. That used to be a thing. Now it's you get 1 ammo when you rank up R at level 6. This gives you 3 ammo. Okay, that's fair. That's a buff.
Sorry, when you first learn R, you get 3 ammo, so congratulations. You're Corki, you learn R, bam, here's some ammo, have fun, buddy. So at level 6, you have at least, you know, half your ultimate because you can shoot out 3 shots. Plus
oh, so it's going to be 6 max.
Next thing is actually going down to the second thing that he added, which is you will get a refund on your ammo whenever you auto-attack an enemy champion. This is, again, champion only, not minions, not monsters, not whatever.
Okay, that's
but
fair.
saying that, look, if you can auto attack enemy champions, again, want to play up auto attack as an important part of this kit now, you're going to get more rockets back, and it's going to be where the lion's share, or at least a decent portion of your rocket refunding is going to come from. It's very important that you actually auto attack enemy champions. And alongside that is, of course, a nerf to the rate at which ammo accrues passively. And a nerf to the maximum stacks you can have of your ultimate ammo. These are both pretty meaningful. There's also a mana cost nerf. That doesn't mean a whole lot because the spell is relatively cheap in the first place. But essentially it says that...
So Q is going to be less mana. I assume W is still going to be 100. E is going to have a higher mana than before. And R is going to be higher mana. I don't understand how Corki is going to function without buying tier. I guess you're still going to have to buy tier?
Rock is going to cost you as much as a real ultimate would cost you. And it's going to have a functional cooldown of about a minute because that's how long it's going to take you to get 3 ammo back. Now, your max stack cap is still 6. You can still essentially shoot out 2 ultimates. But shooting out 2 ultimates will cost you 200 mana and take you 2 minutes to get all those rockets back unless you auto-attack.
That's necessary.
Auto-attacking is going to be a very easy way to get rockets back. If you come to a fight with full rockets, you will never run out as long as you're autoing in the fight. It is basically impossible to run out as long as you're able to
perma-rocketing
during the fight here. So it's not a real constraint when actively team fighting. It is a very real constraint when trying to play poke. When trying to do a dragon standoff, you will run out of ultis if this happens. And so it's a pretty heavy swing because we're trying to pretty heavily switch the gameplay pattern here of this spell while still being pretty clearly an auto-attack spell weaver. The Sheen synergy here is still very, very valuable. Next thing, though, is converting the spell to physical damage, converting the total AD ratio to a bonus AD ratio, and no longer having that AD ratio scale with rank. This means that though there is...
I can't believe R is physical. I thought they would leave R as magic. Like, what the fuck is this? Q is magic, or what? Or is, yeah, Q is magic, but auto attack E and R is no physical. What the hell?
A rank up incentive on R because it's going to increase the base damage. It is no longer going to increase the rate at which you accrue ammo. It is no longer going to increase the rate at which your gold increases your damage. So while in the new version of Corki, a level 16 R might do 100 more damage than a level 15 version of R, if you compare that to live Corki, that base damage is there, plus your gold scaling is 50% stronger, plus your ammo recoup is faster. That is a lot of level scaling for a champion that we don't want to skew so heavily toward mid lane. And so we're saying, no, you can have pretty good gold scaling. That's still meant to be good. The current AD ratio is, I believe, close to or at the old max rank AD ratio. And by the way, level 16 is not a typical rank to hit. So in actual practice,
that's true. On ADC especially.
But because this thing is physical damage, this means a level 17 Jax with a Frozen Heart is going to take a lot less damage from your R, unless you can compensate for it by getting a Last Whisper upgrade or doing something else.
This is true. By making so much of his kit physical damage, Last Whisper will finally be a Corki item, and you will be able to buy it, and you will need to buy it. Because right now, you never buy Last Whisper.
Or relying on your E-Shred to bring his armor down a little bit more and getting you closer there. And so this is obviously a fairly big deal. Converting to physical damage certainly matters. We also, on a note, are with the AP ratio on this spell. We want Corki to build normal...
That is good. Thank you. AP ratio on Corki should have been gone already 5 years ago.
AD items
on R.
Right now, crit and generic caster builds are pretty close together in power level. One thing we're going to try to solve is making crit look like it's actually a good set of stats. I think this is pretty solvable though. But basically, yeah, moving Missile Barrage around to scale less strongly on champion level, less strongly on rank, and instead just be a...
I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they're going to have to add that R scales with crit. Because I'm kind of afraid that maybe the champion doesn't have enough crit incentives.
No matter what, so that you can be level 13 and get a lot of damage. Then finally,
base stats, okay. Oh, attack speed buffed, I mentioned that one. Base AD is nerfed, okay. The ability stats tweaked early. Okay, yeah, makes sense. There's gonna be probably higher armor and MR, rank 1. There's gonna scale per level worse than before. To try to push him into an ADC role, right? And is there anything else? Miscellaneous Stories, Eternals, a couple of things we tried. Okay. That's kinda it, I guess. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think of this. My prediction right now would be that he's probably very highly skewed and proper skewed, kind of like Kalista and Draven. I don't really see how this champion will be played in like silver, because he's trying to like give people a champion that's like a lane bullet that is easy to pick up, sure. But low elo games are often decided in late game, and if this champion cannot be a champion in late game, he's probably just gonna be shit. That is the reality. Other than that, like, it's very interesting, but I expected more. Like the R giving you refund on auto is very cool. The E is probably fine. The Q is probably fine. The W to me is like missing something. I don't get it. I think with current Corki being so low base moon speed, being short range, and needing to W onto the opponent, I just don't think this is happening. The current Corki will not be able to really reach people, I think, that much doubling forward. The passive having true damage, kinda cool. he's talked about the stuff they tried with W at the end of the video. They tried to make his W longer and W slow. Ooh, okay. See, one of the things that I was thinking is to make the W actually longer. Because if you make it longer, it's gonna actually be able to reach people. But currently, I'm kind of skeptical about that part. And one of the things I'm also skeptical about is at the beginning of the video, he talked about, where is it? Heavily cooperative, this line, which means they want him to have synergy with the support. Okay, so where's the synergy in the kit between the support? So you make his Q faster, okay, but then again his Q is already fine, and then you made like that you want to W forward. So okay, if he has a Nautilus, and Nautilus CC someone, then yeah, maybe I can see Corki doubling on top of someone, right? But besides that, I don't really see where Corki is very cooperative. I guess the Shred has some synergy and you Shred faster with your teammate. Sure, but is the Shred magic resist and armor, or is the Shred only armor? That's also a question I'm not sure of. Overall, hard to say without seeing the numbers and without seeing the kit in action. It looks promising, I guess. I mean, it looks interesting. It's better than nothing. I totally agree with Phreak that Corki is boring to watch. That Corki should be crit Corki, not poke Corki with Malignance or whatever the hell we had in the past with Ludens. I agree with that. I'm not so sure about making him only an ADC. And so early game skewed. I kind of get where he's coming from, that League of Legends does not really have a lot of early game marksmen. It's only like Javen and Kalista. The rest are kind of, I mean, I guess Samira you could count maybe. The rest are mostly just late game skewed for the most part. I kind of get this part. Yeah. Ice Tobog and Corki has the best splash art in the game. Wow, interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll see. I'm gonna try it out when it comes out.